My name is Mr. Calzone02. I've tried to record this about 6 or 7 times now, but my name is Mr. Calzone02. I've tried to record this about 6 or 7 times now, but there we go. The sound is working. So, I wanted to record this in a way that sounded natural and not at all rehearsed, but that has kind of gone out the window, and so I'm forced to rehash things again and again and again and again and again. So, I have been playing and running and hosting RPG games for the majority of my life, most of which has been a endless stream of playing since I was very much a young kid back in my parents' home growing up. I've played RPG games since pre-high school, and I've been hosting and running games for my brothers, my family friends, and long-term gaming friends for literal years. A lot of the experience I've accrued as a DM over the past years has been keep your gaming group small, over-invite, expect 2 or 3 people to drop out at some point, be okay with the group you're playing with dissolving and disappearing because it's going to happen. Scheduling is the number one enemy of role-playing games. Digital is not to be trusted in any way, shape, or form because people are far too easily distracted. Phones are something that you try to keep off of the table, but people can use it for rules reference between turns. Try to keep cross-talk about things not related to the ongoing game to a minimum, and just try to keep the creative environment going. I have had an ongoing game with the current group I'm running going for over a year in non-combat encounters. We're just now getting back to the dungeon delving part of the D&D. I run D&D 3.5 primarily, but I've played classic D&D, 2nd edition D&D. I've played 5th edition D&D. I've played a variety of other RPG games as well. Many of them the World of Darkness franchise. I've also played GURPS. I have also played Cthulhu, Call of Cthulhu to be specific, and a couple of other systems as well. So I have a lot of experience in a variety of systems, and I would say that the primary drive for most of the storytelling that I do in RPG settings is that you give your players interesting choices. You build a world around them that they can interact with. They can ask questions. They can ask questions about anything they want, but you can make them aware that the questions they're asking have an impact beyond what they're doing. So if they're going to spend their entire gaming session investigating the contents of an office when you've told them the terrorists are down the street doing stuff, and you're rifling through a filing cabinet when you know where the enemy is, make them aware that things are going to transition in the background while they're here rifling through cupboards, not engaging with the plot. Now, mind you, that could be seen as engaging with the plot in that I'm trying to do super sleuthing and investigate the background of things while not necessarily engaging in direct combat. That is a viable play style. But if you've begun your gaming session with a group of players that are engaged for the combat, they are in a combat-driven oriented group, and one player is holding up the entire party to check the files, you might need to take that person aside and go, we can go over what you found in the filing cabinet later, just give me a roll for a search check that you do, and we'll move down the street and deal with your investigation another time, and you spend an amount of time before you catch up with the main party in the combat encounter that's planned. That's how you handle things like that. Where you have a player whose goals are misaligned with what the party is doing, allow them to engage meaningfully, but move on with the primary crux of the direction you're trying to bring everyone. It seems like a difficult thing to comprehend at first as a DM, that you can allow the number one thing that people always say, don't split the party. Well, it's It has circumstances where that's not as big a consideration as people seem to think it is. But it is a challenge for the DM to keep the narrative pace between two separate groups of activities going so that they remain engaging. Now, the other thing I would say is narrative world building is great. As a DM, you probably have a great deep drive to be a writer and to create reams and reams and reams and reams and reams of lore. Just page after page after page of fictional information about your world that no one but you will ever read. I won't fight you on it. But might be a waste of your time. Because, as a DM, I'm sure you're aware, running a campaign with players can often feel like herding cats. And there's a reason for that, because the players will always do the unexpected thing. You can create a 12 by 12 map of the world and then have them go off the side of it the very first session, where you don't have anything prepared. You can build an entire world and have them go, yeah, but I want to see what's over there. What's that? What's that thing just off the edge of the map? Because most of D&D is about exploring the unknown, about pushing boundaries, about seeing what's out there for themselves. And so, sometimes it's better to not necessarily give them a world map. You give them a rough understanding of the world in which they live that their characters would have for that place and that time. And so that gives you much closer, fuzzier edges to explore, because, well, you've seen a map of the world growing up. You think you know where the edges are. But the world is far bigger than they understand. A lot of these things are very advanced things. A lot of the basics boil down to don't let your players' choices bog you down. Take what they do and give them an appropriate response out of what has happened. That can seem like a difficult thing to do, but it's really not. One of the things I've had someone who games with me when we're talking about running a campaign engage with me on is that creating characters out of nothing, creating environments, creating characters, descriptions, parts of the world from their choices, from nothing, is a skill that takes time to master. And there's a tactful way to put this, and then there's a real way to put this, and I'm going to choose the real way. You have to be able to spin bullshit like your life depends on it. Because it often does. In that sense that when your player takes a turn down that third alley on 5th Street, where you're trying to get them to talk to the homeless bum who may or may not have seen the murder last weekend, and they want to go talk to the deli vendor on the street next door because their back door might have a camera pointed in the right direction, you need to go, well, I didn't think they would look for security camera footage for the nearby alleys, but that could be a thing. So you start asking for roles, you start asking for, well, where do you want to look? What kind of stores are you looking for? Who might have a store on an adjacent street that might have an alleyway that could be pointed in the right direction? Adaptability in what your story has and where the directions of that universe could go are entirely up to this whole brain meat in here. It limits what your players can do in the world in which their characters are residing. Spinning an appropriate level of bullshit for what they have chosen to encounter or direction they've chosen to go is an important skill. Coming up with shit on the fly, as it were, is important, but it is also why DMs do this. Create entire entire reams of paper. If you don't know what a ream is copying and printing machines usually come with paper in one of these. This is a ream of paper. I have worked with, as a DM, an individual. I will not name names, that would be rude, but who had literally spent an entire ream of paper creating lore for their world that they were never going to use. Now, it had useful information in it. It was not useless information, and that's what a lot of people end up creating, useless information. Because the organic information your players are going to encounter and create just by living in the world that you are creating for them is going to not be in that stack of paper. You can create all the demographic information for a city that you want. You can create all the socioeconomic trade disputes and problems of an entire world. You can fill in the continental and village population of an entire continent's worth of fantasy people. But as long as that is not the reality they encounter while playing the game, it will be utterly useless to you. Now, I say that, and there's a difficult separation I need to make here. I have also known DMs who play strictly by the module, whereas they buy or purchase a gaming module for a given system, and they run that set of encounters and information strictly by what exists within the encounter module. That is it. I'm sorry that's not mentioned here. We need to move forward. They're very dull people. They have no imagination. None. That is a possibility for running a campaign, but you're going to very quickly find that when you run modules strictly by what they contain, you limit the imagination potential of those scenarios to cookie-cutter cardboard answers. Suddenly the world becomes incredibly hollow, because when a player asks a question that isn't in the module, you end up sitting there with a book of paper of information that is, I'm sorry, I'm running this, and there's nothing else about this. Ask a different question. You end up feeling very programmed, because when you run a module strictly from what's in the module, you lose all of the creative flexibility that is the role-playing game. The collaborative nature of the role-playing game disintegrates under, we may as well be playing a computer game. These are the options you have in front of you. If you don't fix it with solution A or B, there's nothing here. The thing you want to encourage as a role-playing DM is imagination. You want to encourage people to look at that box, whatever box it may be. For that, it's for those reference, that's the upside down logo there is Hero's Quest. You want to take that world that they're in and tell them that is not the limits of this universe. There's more to this than that. There are more options, more of the universe to see, explore, and feel than what they're seeing with their eyes. And dragging them into that is the goal. Giving them, hey, there might be a valley here, and it might be filled with, ogres that you don't necessarily want to fight. And there's a dam up the river. What if we just broke the dam and let the valley flood? Well, there's also a village way down the valley that's got people in that you do care about. So maybe breaking the dam is not a good idea. Because you could just not deal with the problem. Because if there's a valley that's got a settlement of humans and a settlement of ogres, and you're like, I could just break the dam and flood the valley. And I don't have to deal with the ogres. But also the village would be destroyed. What if we evacuate the village, flood the valley, The ogres are gone, everything is destroyed, but the people get to rebuild because they've been warned in advance. Well, what if you don't do either of those things? Those scenarios are where role-playing games thrive. You give them hard questions that they then need to sit there and go, oh, well, shit, what do? We could just flood the valley. Well, what if we try to negotiate with the ogres? And your emissary gets sent back headless. And you're like, well, they don't want to negotiate. Okay, well, what if we can intimidate them into surrendering the valley and moving on? Well, we might be able to do that. So instead of just let's charge in and kill everything, that is the standard option of most RPGs, you give them a moral dilemma and a situation and a backdrop that goes, well, maybe we don't actually have to use the dam at all. Maybe we just leave it alone. Maybe we just protect it. Maybe we lure them to a meeting point below the dam and we insinuate that we could destroy the dam and wipe them out. And we use that as a bargaining chip. The world in which your players inhabit has a million answers and solutions for every problem. Allowing them to explore the problems in front of them and find alternative solutions is how you create player agency. You give them the sandbox and you ask them, what do you want to do about this? What do you want to do? It's the same as the ancient question that starts with D&D's foundation. You have two doors, left and right. What do you want to do? A lot of classic dungeon diving is literally go left or go right. Now, there's a lot of player distinction between is that the kind of experience they want to get. Dungeon diving in D&D is very different experience from, say, World of Darkness. Vampire the Masquerade is an incredibly diametrically opposed experience to D&D. Whereas in D&D you have a dedicated system of axial alignments, good, evil, known, fixed things. That's not to say they're immutable, because it is possible for players and characters to experience change in alignment, where they go gradually through changes to become one alignment or the other. But it is a world in which things are fixed. Things are known. There is an answer to the question, good versus evil. There is fixed, solid answers, known, certifiable, verifiable answers. World of Darkness is the game of gray areas. It is the literal game of hidden things. It is a game about holding on to your humanity in the darkness that compels you to do horrible, evil things and says, how far are you willing to go to hold on to what scraps of humanity you, as a fledgling vampire, have left? The World of Darkness has within it a variety of interesting settings that ask a number of questions. Changeling the Lost asks the question, what do you do in a universe that has unmoored you from reality? What is the core defining emotion or precept that holds you to the world, that cements your existence here and now? What is the thing that you will not sacrifice when you want to move forward or just to exist? What is the core tenet that you will not surrender to continue to be? And sometimes your character's answers are all that you need, but shaping how those answers change is part of the core tenet of what Changeling the Lost is. You are confronted with forces that can change your very body. Your whole existence can be shaped, changed, molded, and reshaped with or without your consent. There's a similar question to that in the World of Darkness VTM game, Vampire the Masquerade, where you have been turned into a horrific nightmare beast that feeds on the blood of the living to continue. And so your characters need to be asked the question of, do you even want to continue as you are now? Are there questions you need answers to? Is there a motivation that holds you to the world beyond, I died and came back as a blood-feasting monstrosity? Am I here to protect those that I love? Am I here to destroy those that I hate? What is the core tenet to holding your character's humanity together? All of these questions are part of what makes role-playing games the seed that leads to people having deeper understandings of who they are as a person. Because in order to play a character, some people just play it, throw away. Bam, I don't care, it's done. And those people are generally very boring when it comes to RPGs. They're throwaway characters, throwaway initiatives, throwaway thought processes. They don't put any understanding into the game that they're playing. They have difficulty interpreting the moral environment in which they're engaging. Now, that's not to say that they're any less for it. Playing a game like it's a game is why we're here. We're here to have fun with friends. We're here to engage in a game in a shared collaborative storytelling environment. Some people take this extremely seriously, and they are like, I want to get my character development through. I have 4 hours to game once a week. I want to do something with my character to forward my game. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. You get into the bad when people see it as a win-lose scenario, where they view a RPG game, in whatever its many forms take, as a win-loss scenario, as a zero-sum game. People with that mentality just end up min-maxing. They don't create an interesting person. They create a stat block designed to fight you. They go, hey, is this a combat-oriented game? Great. Then they make a character that is designed to crush any opposition they may face through a variety of different methods. Or a master manipulator who goes, aha, you want me to fight, but I'm going to make everyone else fight for me instead. You cannot control what core aspects of the game your players are going to engage with, but that can be solved very, very early on by engaging with your players about what kind of game are we trying to play here. Are you here for the combat? Are you here for the social intrigue? Are you here just to hang out and have fun with your friends? If they're just there to hang out and have fun with their friends and play a fun game, that is one of the ideal answers, because they are hitting your gaming sessions with an open mind and a willingness to explore aspects of their character they would never be willing to touch otherwise. If they're just here to engage in the blood and glory of glorious combat and the gutting of their enemies and play as a barbarian and they just want to murder, you know what to expect from that player. You know what to expect from that character. And you can slowly give them more opportunities to engage in the other aspects of the role-playing game. Whatever system they happen to be in. As if this is a Warhammer game where they're playing a Khornite Berserker, which are typically the enemy, but, or something along those lines, where you have someone who is engaging just to have, I want to do the most damage, I want to kill things, I want to stab stuff, I want to kill stuff. Well, you're setting up a traditional murder hobo of, I don't care about your plot, I don't care about your story, I just want to be the biggest, toughest, meanest son of a bitch around and kill things. And it's like, that's not necessarily a bad way to play, it's just not growing into the full potential of the medium they're playing in. Now, it can be extremely meaningful when someone who plays that kind of character of they're here for the strength, they're here for the glory, they're here for the murder, and having them have moments where oh my god, did their barbarian just say maybe we shouldn't kill them? What? What? You can set up character moments like that where someone has played a character, the straight-faced murder boner barbarian, the entire campaign, who scratches his chin in one particular instance and goes, I don't know if we should do this, guys. And the rest of the party goes, what happened to you? Was he replaced with a changeling? Is there a mimic in the party? What? Who replaced the barbarian? He wants to kill everything. What happened? Those kinds of things can be set up from a scenario where you've had a long-term player change how they interact with the game as a medium for interpretation and roleplay. Maybe they've set that. Maybe there's someone who has wanted to set up that kind of story moment where they've taken a character that is purely rage, kill, murder, strong, and give them that moment of development where they become something more. They have learned, they've grown, they've developed. Now, another aspect to all of this is that something a lot of people consider is the hero's journey. They think that every character in the story needs to be undergoing some aspect of the hero's journey at all times. And I'd say that kind of forced narrative development is difficult to engineer. You might want your players to be the Dark Tide group, or the Deep Rock Galactic group, or John Wick the group. Gritty, serious, and end up with the Scooby-Doo gang, but that's more human. That's more relatable, that's more understandable, that's more, we didn't want to die, so we ran the fuck away! Stuff like that ends up happening all the time because that is human. That is what people choose to do. That you give them a choice between your characters could die in this battle and they can go, fuck that, we're gonna leave. Of course, that's also part of the communication of a DM, is to give your players those options and those choices and make sure that they're aware of the options they have in front of them. I have had scenarios where I have given people a scenario where they're going to fight a thing, and it's a... You want to charge the dragon in melee combat range. That's not a good idea. Okay. And said nothing, and let them charge the dragon and be sliced to ribbons. And then have them go, why didn't you tell me it was so strong? It killed my character. It's so horrible. Now I'm dead. I have to make a new character. It's like you tried to charge a dragon on your own. The rest of your party was like, no, we're getting the hell out of here. You wanted to fight it in single one-on-one combat. By yourself. How did you think you were going to win? Shut up, idiot. Now play your undead paladin. Yes. I have to... Chatbot flagged that, by the way, cried. But yeah, the continuing answer there is that sometimes people are unaware that they have another choice, and you have to communicate that there are other options besides the path you seem to be taking. Just to make sure you're aware, you don't have to do this. Now, there are plenty of reasons a character would want to do something, like they want to go out with a heroic last stand of buying their party time to flee. Where they're taking something, they want to play a new character, they're trying to sacrifice their old one so they can bring in a new character. That's the reason they might want to, have a heroic last stand against the dragon, is they're trying to kill off their character in a way that makes narrative sense, where that character has chosen to go, no, I need to make sure my friends have time to escape, and they fight the dragon to the last, trying to buy their friends time to get out of the way, or out of the dungeon, or away from whatever threat that happens to be in the way. Those can create story moments where, as long as they're aware of the consequences of their actions. Now, sometimes there are people who are like, the DM should be impartial. I should never let anything bad happen to the players unless they agree to it. They should be the kind of DM that go, okay, that's what you decide to do, and just let them go kill themselves. There are those that are like, oh, you should always fudge the rolls so that the players never die, so they get to continue their happy-go-lucky, happy adventures for the whole of time. And I go, no, if they want to kill off their character or they want to do something dumb and throw themselves into the vat of acid, let them. That's their choice, not yours. You're the DM. You're the enforcer of the rules of natural law. If they have decided that they want to do the stupid, let them. If they want to be the dumb, okay, be the dumb. Let them make the choices that they want to make, and let them live with the consequences of those choices. Now, I'm not saying don't negotiate with your players. Don't, give them the tools to make educated choices. Now, sometimes you'll run into players and people who cannot make that distinction between character knowledge and personal knowledge. And that is a problem. And so when you catch people making choices like that, where you can go, hey, I've noticed you're playing your character like you. You're not making choices like the character in that world should be. You're making choices based on meta-knowledge you as a player have. And it's making the game worse for everyone. When players make choices based on meta-knowledge, it's almost always worse for everyone at the table, because you're reducing your roleplay scenarios to a list of statistical choices. And that's not why you're there. I mean, the stats and information are important. Yeah, in PC RPGs, you have that problem of, I'm choosing. It's like whenever a game presents you with Paragon or Renegade. Well, now you've told me the choice is good or evil. What the hell? There are two sides to that argument of, on one side of the argument is the don't tell them which is the Paragon choice and which is the Renegade choice. Let them make their choice and find out what the consequences are after they have done the action. But the other side applies as well, where you go, well, you didn't tell me that was a Renegade choice. How could I have known? Well, in games like specifically Mass Effect, where all you have to communicate the weight of the choice you have in front of you is a little indicator. Sorry, it'll be over here. A little line of text with a little star or symbol on that side, and a short blurb of text that attempts to summarize what your character's about to do. You kind of have to have that little bit that tells you, because the text might not do a very good job. And the Mass Effect game's gotten a lot of trouble for that, because it would be a thing where you'd select something and go, what the fuck just happened? That's not what that text said to me at all. That's not the way that line read. That's not what I thought was going to happen when I picked that option. Anyway, I'm going to bring this to a wrap for now, and I will continue in a short bit. We'll pick this up in a few minutes and continue. See you soon.